How does your resume measure up? Does it need a makeover or a complete overhaul? On today's episode of the Stay at Home Nurse podcast, we're going to talk everything resumes with Amanda, the Résumé Rx. Even if you don't think you need a new resume, you're going to enjoy this podcast where we get to know Amanda better. And at the very end, we'll have some tips for you that can help you if you ever decide you need a new resume suddenly. Amanda is an Ivy League educated nurse practitioner and entrepreneur, having founded the Résumé Rx in 2018. She helps nursing professionals with career and resume strategies so that they can land the opportunities that leave them personally and professionally fulfilled. She has been featured as a ScrubsMag influencer to follow and is a 2020-2021 Doximity Op-Med writing fellow. Her favorite job is being mom to her 3 young daughters. Welcome to the Stay at Home Nurse podcast. I'm your host, Deanna Cooper Gillingham. For over 25 years, I've strived to use my nurse credentials to find work that fit my lifestyle. Whether it was raising my 4 children and 3 fur babies, traveling the world, or moving to Mexico and living on the Caribbean Sea. Sometimes I succeeded, and sometimes I failed, but I always learned from the experience. Now, I want to help you by sharing what worked and what didn't work. There are so many opportunities out there for nurses today. The Stay at Home Nurse podcast will inspire and equip you to have a nursing career that is meaningful and supports your lifestyle. Now let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Stay at Home Nurse podcast. Today we have a guest with us, Amanda, known as the Résumé Rx. Amanda, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, thanks so much for having me. So my name's Amanda Guarniere, and I am a nurse practitioner, and I have been for almost 10 years now. And I'm also the founder of the Résumé Rx, which is an online business that helps nurses and nurse practitioners find, land, and love their dream jobs. And so what that means is that I have resume expertise, and I provide nurses information to feel empowered when it comes to making career decisions.
Awesome. So you do more than just resumes, it sounds like.
Yes, I often joke that I maybe chose the wrong business name because it makes me seem like I'm all about the resume. And while the resume is so important, it's really just a small fraction of what you need in order to be successful professionally. So yes, I'm more than the resume.
Okay, I find that very interesting because one of my goals is to help nurses to find all the options that are available to them and help them to find the option that is right for them. So I like to do that by just exposing them to different opportunities that are out there. It sounds like this is something that you kind of help them with too, maybe exploring their strengths and weaknesses and what would be a good fit for them. Tell us a little more about that. I didn't realize that you did all this.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that when it comes to finding a job that you are going to be happy with, because ultimately that's what we all really want, I think, is to feel happy and satisfied in our life overall. And part of that is feeling fulfilled in your career. A lot of that happens in the decisions you make of what path to go down. And that means figuring out what fulfills you professionally, what aligns with your lifestyle. I know you can speak to that in terms of, where you live and work. And I think that a lot of times we can get really caught up in only having one end goal of the job itself or the idea of the career. But sometimes it's important to step back and really take a bird's eye view of our entire lives to see, okay, are we pursuing the things that are not just going to make us happy in our career, but also in our life as a whole? And that can really shift and change throughout your life depending on, different seasons of life, so to speak. So I really like to make that message really clear that, your professional fulfillment isn't just in this one vacuum, but it's so helpful to think of it in the context of your entire life.
So how do you do that? Do you do coaching or do you have classes or how do you help people to figure this out?
So I have a few different free trainings on my website that walks through a framework that I use to help people figure that out. I like to also infuse this messaging in my email newsletters, my weekly emails, my own podcast, my social media content. So it's kind of this overall message that if you come and interact with my platform, chances are you're going to hear this message. And then if you choose to work with me deeper, if you pay for a program of mine or a course or work with me one-on-one, then that's where you can get a little bit more individualized, tailored information if that's what you decide that you need.
So this is really interesting. How did you fall into this?
So the story is a few years ago, I had been searching for a business idea. I had just had my first children. I had twins. They're 4.5 now. And after having the twins, going back to work as a full-time ER nurse practitioner who worked overnights, I was really eager to take a step back from my clinical role. And so I went part-time at work, but ultimately wanted to find some sort of creative outlet that could also be a business idea. And so I was on Facebook one day and noticed that someone in a group that I was in, a nurse practitioner group, was looking for help with their resume formatting, and really felt completely clueless with what to do. And this was always something that came really naturally to me. So I didn't realize it was a problem for other people. So I chimed in and gave some feedback, and my feedback was well received. And I kind of had this little light bulb moment that, oh, this is something that's easy for me, that's difficult for others. Is there a way that I can fill in this gap or connect the dots or do this for other people? So I started offering my services to a few people to kind of get my feet wet and see, could I do this for others in the way that I could do it for myself? And so that started things off. And I was originally just writing resumes for other people, but then I noticed that ended up taking up a lot of my time, and it wasn't giving me as much of an impact as I really wanted to have. I couldn't get that message out to as many nurses and NPs as I would have liked. So my business kind of pivoted into more of an educational platform, in that I much rather teach and empower nursing professionals to be able to do this themselves, because it's very empowering to not only write your own resume confidently, but go through the whole process and know that you were responsible for your own success. So that's kind of what I focus on now, is spreading the message to as many nurses and nurse practitioners as possible of the skills that you need to really be in control of your professional destiny, so to speak.
And I would think that the process that you go through, I find sometimes when we have to go through processes and do things the hard way, we actually learn more and it helps us more than just having somebody do it for us. And I would think in the interview, when you've actually written that resume yourself and you're proud of it and it landed you the job and you saw what it accomplished for you, that would show in your confidence during the actual interview also, because now you feel more confident. You don't feel that imposter syndrome, well, like, this isn't really me, this is how Amanda made me sound. But instead, because you've taught them how to grow and become this person and realize who they are, the whole realization process would actually be more powerful for them.
Yes, 100%. And that's something that I've discovered over the years, because what I quickly did was I created resume templates of the design and the layout and the prompts of what I was writing for other people in a way that could help me kind of disseminate this tool to more people. And so the templates are probably my top seller, and they make it really easy for you to input your own information, but in a really beautiful layout. And I'll get messages back that say, thank you so much. I can't believe that this is my information. You helped me land my dream job. And my response usually is, this was all you. You did this yourself. This is your story on paper. You just had a little bit of a makeover or an outfit change that I was able to help you with, but ultimately it's all you. So even though tactically speaking, yes, I sell resume templates, the delivery is really much more about confidence. And you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. That's really the transformation that I'm after when I'm interacting with my community.
And I just kind of had a little bit of a light bulb moment here because we're both entrepreneurs. One of the things that I love about that is the transformation you help people make. And it's such a wonderful feeling. As a nurse, I got so much satisfaction out of helping my patient to transform. And going into entrepreneurship, I really thought that I wouldn't be able to get that same satisfaction. But you do when you help a person to transform. And, we just recently talked about this in our Facebook group, because it's people sometimes they want the answer, the quick fix. And I can give you that. But if I give you that, you're not actually learning and growing. But if I can help you to learn and grow, and then you can help others, you get the position you want, or you get that goal that you want, which then you can reflect back on how you learned and growed, and you can help other people to learn and grow because you've now learned something. And there's also a good, really great feeling about something that you didn't think you could do. And now all of a sudden, like, I know, I'm sure that the person would think, I can't write a good resume. I can't do this. So they come to you, and then you actually show them that, yes, you can. And now they have confidence now. And maybe there's a job or a role or a position that they didn't think that they could do, that now they have more confidence. So I just like the big picture. And I'm really excited to hear that you look more into the big picture than just, here, let me do your resume for you and get you the job.
Yeah. And thank you for pointing that out, because that really is kind of the zoomed out mission of my business. And that's why I love this so much. I'm not passionate about writing resumes and constructing bullet points. I'm good at it and I can teach you how to do it, but am I passionate about it? No, but I'm passionate about helping nurses become confident so that they can land the jobs where they feel confident and successful, and then they can have the impact that they want on their patients. So I kind of feel like I'm able to contribute to that wider impact, which really gives me the more fulfillment than me having impact on patients. Like it's a cascade. If I can help nurses and NPs be confident and successful professionally, that means that they're going to show up better in their clinical roles. They're going to affect and improve the lives of more patients. And just the thought of having a little hand in that for me is what keeps me going.
And the people listening can't see us, but I'm like glowing as you're saying this, because I've done a lot of self-reflection recently, and that's what I have found also. There's something about, I love case management. I loved it as a job. I was great at it. Am I one of those people who nerd out by reading all of the, journals and all that kind of stuff? Not really. I read what I have to, but I'm not that passionate about it. But what I am passionate about is helping other case managers to love the profession as much as I did, and help them to be able to successfully manage their clients and have the transformations in their clients. So now, instead of me helping, maybe I was helping 50 to 100 clients that I had under me, now I'm helping hundreds of nurses that are each helping hundreds of clients. So it's just that bigger effect. So I think we have kind of like a sisterhood there with our missions.
For sure.
And honestly, I think that a lot of entrepreneurs that are successful, that is their goal. My goal was similar to yours, and I don't think I've ever said this out loud, but I was looking for something that I could, make a living at outside of, I wanted to start a side hustle. I wanted to start an online business. I wanted to be able to live anywhere. And I honestly didn't think this was it. I thought I was just going to try it out and use it as a test business and learn from it, and then try something else. And I got passionate about helping other people. And that's what keeps me going. And it sounds like you did the same thing. You were looking for something, you found the opportunity, you realized you could help people with this, and now you are. So I want to give listeners an idea of what it's like to work with you. So what is the ideal person who you work with? What do they look like?
Sure. So there are a few different ideal people, I would say. So usually it's a nurse or a nurse practitioner or a student of either of those professions who has an idea of what they want to emerge in professionally, but they're really not sure the action steps to take in between having that passion and actually landing the job. So what I really like to encourage people to do is learn how to strategize your own way. So I like to teach the strategy side of things. So my ideal person who works with me could be someone who just simply needs a template to revamp their resume, or it could be a nurse practitioner or student who is dealing with a very competitive job market and really needs all the pieces of the puzzle to land that job that they really want. So they may not only need help with the resume, but they may also need help figuring out the strategy. They want to learn to do something different than what everybody else is doing, which is really what I like to teach in my job search strategy methods.
Okay, let's get a few tactical tips for our listeners here. So,
Sure.
what do you suggest to somebody who is just entering nursing and doesn't really have a lot of things to put on their resume? What advice do you have for them?
So usually there are other things in their life, their schooling, their career before nursing, if if they're a second career nurse. Usually there are things that you can extrapolate and highlight on your resume that will show that these things have made you a better nurse. So I get a lot of questions, what do I write if I don't have any nursing experience, if I'm a new graduate? And if you've had any other jobs, you can usually pick out some things that you were good at, you were talented at, that will make you a better nurse. For example, pretty much every job has some component of customer service to it. And a lot of new grads may have worked a previous job in retail or hospitality, or, even if they waited tables during nursing school or something. So being able to show what you learned from that job that's completely not nursing related and show how it will make you a better nurse, show that transferable skill, which is I like to refer to it as, that's definitely something that you can feature on your resume. You can also feature your clinical rotations. If you don't have any paid experience, but you learned a lot in your clinicals, you don't just have to list them. You can actually expand upon the different competencies that you learned and the different skills that you felt like you had kind of an advanced learning of while you're in school. You can also feature volunteerism, community service, join some professional organizations, those types of things.
I like that. And let's look at the other end of the spectrum for a minute. And a nurse who's maybe been doing this for 20 or 30 years and has worked at a lot of different places. And if they listed everything, it would be 3 or 4 pages long. And everybody says it shouldn't be 3 or 4 pages long. So what do you recommend for that?
Yeah, so this is when you actually have to work backwards based on what your goal is and what job you're applying for, because a resume really should be a 1, maybe 2-page snapshot of the relevant experience that's tailored to whatever you're going for next, as opposed to a CV, which is a more academic document that can be many, many pages that documents all your jobs, research appointments, papers that you've published, that type of thing. So what I recommend doing first, if you have a lot of experience and you're not really sure where to start or how to pare down, is to look at the job description of the role you're applying to and see what their idea of the ideal candidate is. Highlight the skills that they're looking for, the experience that they're looking for, and then kind of work backwards and include the experiences that you've had that are most relevant and most specific for that job. So that might involve not including all of those jobs for the past however many years. Maybe you'll only include the ones that are relevant, or maybe you'll only include the past 5 to 10 years.
Wonderful advice. And one last question that was more tactical. What about somebody, I know we are both friends with Sadie, the remote nurse, and not just people who want to do remote nursing, but people who want to maybe move to something that they haven't done before. One of the great things about nursing is, if you're a doctor and you want to go from OB to, say, I don't know, oncology, you have a really hard time doing that. But for nurses, it's not that hard. We can move very easily. So if a nurse wanted to go into a specialty area, or maybe go from a hospital to an outpatient clinic, or to a remote position or a home health position, how can she best reflect that she doesn't have that experience, but it's something that she wants to move into?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, there are a couple different scenarios. The first scenario would be if you had something that was some sort of connector, some sort of stepping stone experience. So, for example, if you worked with, if you worked on a telemetry floor and you wanted to go into a cardiac ICU, for example, like there's some sort of connector there that you could showcase and say, hey, I have this foundational experience and I am eager and willing to build upon that in this new experience. So if you have a connector experience, it's a lot easier to articulate that on paper. If it's something that you don't have any experience in whatsoever, it can be a little bit more difficult depending on where you are geographically and the specialty and your years of experience. Sometimes a well-written cover letter is good enough. Other times you may want to work on other touch points or other things outside of the resume and cover letter. So you want to spend some time building your network, making some connections with either people in that field that you already know or people who are working at the facility that you want to work at, leveraging other types of connections other than just hitting submit on a resume and cover letter, because it can be more tricky if you don't have any experience in what you're going for, and then you also don't know anybody or have anyone who can kind of sponsor you or raise their hand and say, yes, this person is eager and motivated and would be a good candidate to make this move.
That's great advice. I like that. So when you're working with your clients, you have templates and you can help them in that way. And you said you also work with them to kind of on a more one-on-one level also. Tell us about the different levels of different ways that people could work with you if they feel like, yes, I want something different. I'm a little afraid. I hear from nurses that say, I haven't had to write a resume in 20 years. And they look a lot different now than they did back then.
Yes. So if you are someone who's fairly confident in your writing skills and you just need kind of a framework or an outline to follow, then certainly the resume template bundle that I offer is a great place to start because it includes some prompts. It's very affordable, and there are some add-on upgrade options if you need kind of some word-for-word Mad Libs style templates that you just want to fill in the blanks with. So that is definitely a great option if you are comfortable with writing, and for many newer graduates, that fits them totally fine. If you are someone who wants a little bit more tutorial information, but you don't necessarily need or want to work with me one-on-one, I do have a training program called Weekend Resume Makeover, which is essentially a self-paced online course, includes all the templates, but also includes walkthrough videos of how to approach each section. And if you have no interest in writing your own resume and you don't want to spend any time other than kind of filling out a questionnaire and sending me your old resume if you have it, I do have a more premium option where you can book me and my team to write your resume and your cover letter completely done for you.
Wonderful. And you have been kind and generous enough to give a discount to listeners of the Stay at Home Nurse podcast. We will, of course, have a link in the show notes where we can go. But for those that are listening and want to go and don't want to look at the show notes, where can they go to find out more about you?
Sure. So my website is theresumérx.com. And if you add a / and shop after that, you'll see the different online templates and programs that I have referred to. And that 20% off coupon code, which will be Deanna, DEANNA, will be good for 20% off the template bundle or my weekend resume makeover program. And I am most active on Instagram. So if anyone's on Instagram at TheResumeRx, please feel free to connect with me there.
Awesome. And so that's where you hang out the most is Instagram, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I have one further question for nurses that are not right now, they're happy with where they are and they don't think that this would maybe apply to them. If 2020 has taught us anything, it is that nothing is for sure. Nothing is certain. And we should always be somewhat prepared for whatever could come. So what advice would you give to somebody who is perfectly happy with where they are? They have no desire to change, but if something would happen, like their department would close, like people who worked at a surgery center and all of a sudden they were closed or something like that. What advice do you have for helping them to be ready and prepared to pivot really quick if they need to?
Yeah, that's a great question because I find that having a resume or having your kind of paperwork together can be a huge barrier for those who do find themselves either without a job or needing a new opportunity. So I usually recommend that you fall into some sort of regular practice of updating your resume or at least going through your dates and certifications and having some sort of system for that on an annual basis. So for a lot of nurses who work in the hospital, if you have an annual evaluation, for example, that's a good time to say, okay, let me update my resume, make sure that I have remembered all the different committees I was a part of this year, come up with some sort of system, even if it's just a legal pad where you write things down so that you don't forget. Because when you're under pressure to create the document and under pressure to find a new job, it's funny how quickly all that information can kind of leave your brain. So some sort of regular way to make sure you are marking down anything professional that you did that might be important in the past year. And also for bonus points, actually updating it on the resume would be my recommendation.
Awesome. I love that. One of the things that I tell my children to do now, which I wish I had done, was as I'm doing things, just keeping track of the different projects that you're working on. And because when you need to look back at, oh, I've been there for 5 years, what did I do? You don't remember. And not only that, just different tasks. Like I didn't realize until I was actually doing a podcast episode that before I started working as a remote nurse, I had some skills that were transferable that I didn't realize. When I worked in the OB unit, we would call patients or we would receive calls from patients and triage. Didn't realize I was triaging because I never thought of it. But if I had to sit down and say, what do you do on a daily basis? That would have been one of the things that I could have added to that bullet point list of my skills. Also, when I worked in a GI lab, it was an outpatient clinic which was part of a hospital, but we had to call the people prior, make sure they understood their prep, patient education over the phone, follow up with them after the procedure, make sure they were okay. And it's like, wow, I didn't realize that I actually did have telephonic experience
Sure.
that I could have put on that resume that I never realized. So just kind of going through and thinking of the different things that you do. Maybe they're not maybe they're like things that you consider the busy work parts that maybe you don't like doing, but it can actually help you at some point. So keeping track of all those is always.
I totally agree.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for taking time away from your beautiful children to spend some time with us today and really helping us out to know what we can do, whether we're just being prepared or whether we're ready to make the change to really be on, to set ourselves up well for that job. There's nothing more frustrating than putting out 100 resumes and not hearing anything back, which I've seen people online saying that they're doing. And so sometimes you just need a little bit of help. You need a little bit of a revamp. But I'm glad that we have the ResumeRx to turn to find that. And she's a really good person too. So I like supporting people that I actually like. So
appreciate that.
That being said, we will have in the show notes, and just for people that are listening, for all of our listeners to know how to find the show notes, if you're in the Apple Podcast app, you can just kind of scroll up and you'll see the notes. You can always go to our website, thestayathomenurse.com, click on the podcast tab where you will find every single episode we've ever had. Look for this episode with the Resume RX. You can click on it. It'll open up a web page for you, and all the information will magically appear right there for you, where you clickable links so you don't even have to take notes. Okay. Any final words, Amanda?
Oh, I just want to thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I really hope that all of your listeners feel empowered to really dream up what they want their career, not only their career, but their entire life to be, and then make a plan and move forward.
Great advice. That's a great way to end the show. And again, thank you so much for being on today and taking time away from your busy life to help us. We appreciate it.
Anytime.
Bye-bye.